Namaste, dosto. Today we are going to talk about Azure Storage Account, which is a cloud storage solution from Microsoft. So when you talk about Azure Storage Account, it comes in two pricing plans. So you have the standard plan and you have the premium plan. When you talk about standard plan, this is good for use cases where you want to use it for everyday use cases, and it works for most workloads that you want to deploy. Whereas premium plan is built for your mission critical workloads. It requires low latency. It has very high throughput that you can get, and it supports synchronous replication, which basically means it supports replication within one region. So you get very high performance when you go with the premium tier. Now the standard pricing tier comes in four data types. So you can store data in form of containers, you can store data with file shares, you can store data as queues, and you can store data in tables. So containers are ideal for storing your unstructured data. So any video files you want to store, any images you want to store, all these things can be stored in containers. File share is good for use cases where you want to mount your files either in cloud or on premises. So it basically allows you to store all the data, and it uses the SMB, server message block, and network file share protocol or NFS protocol. Queue storage is good for use cases where you want to store messages. So if you want to create a decoupling architecture, for example, you want to create an order processing application. For those type of use cases, you go with queue service. Table service is good for use cases where you want to create a NoSQL storage. So for example, you want to store score of gaming application. So you want to see the leaderboard of all the people who are actually winning at this time in the game. You can use a table storage to do that. So when you talk about containers within the standard storage tier, you basically get different types of containers you can deploy. So you can deploy a blob, you can deploy a page blob, you can deploy a append blob. Blob stores in data in form of blocks. So this can be like a 1 MB block, it can be a 100 MB block where you can store your data. Page blob is good for use cases where you want to store read-write data. So for example, your virtual hard disk where a lot of read-writes need to happen, page blob is used for that. Blob is used for use cases where you want to store like video files. So it is good for storing video files, image files, any kind of data. It just breaks the data in form of blocks and it stores it in different blocks there. Then append blob is good for use cases where you want to write log files. So it supports append operations, which basically means that it allows you to add more data to your content, but it does not allow you to delete the data. So append blob is good for use cases where you want to append or add more data to your log files. Now, when you talk about blob storage or binary large object, they have different access tiers that you can you or store the data in. So you can store data in hot tier, cool tier, cold tier, and archive tier. So as you go from hot tier to archive tier, the storage cost decreases, but the access cost increases. So if you store data in hot tier, the data is basically frequently accessed. Cool tier is used for data which is infrequently accessed, but you have a retention policy of 30 days. So you still need to store data at least for 30 days in the storage tier. Cold tier is good for data which needs to be stored for up to 90 days. So it is infrequently accessed, but up to 90 days. So an archive tier is used for use cases where you want to store data for 180 days or even more than that, which is mainly for archival purposes or backup purposes. So as you move from hot tier to cold tier to archive tier, the storage cost decreases, but the access cost increases. So when you're deploying this solution in Azure, you need to make sure that you understand this for sure. And if you talk about premium storage, you get blob, page blob, and file shares to store your data. And obviously the throughput, the latency will be better in the premium pricing plan when you go with any of these options available in the premium pricing plan. So that's about storage in Azure. I'll see you in the next video.